Hey, I'm just popping in with another one with some insight. But I want to say in that last video I left out saying that I was pointing out that I've met a lot of people from Africa that were the furthest thing from xenophobic, and that they really appreciated value in its own right, and they really appreciated what different people have to offer, despite what differences and maybe different points of history that would be at odds between different people, is that they still appreciated what people had to offer. So I was saying that's all I wanted to say with that. But also, it can be another form of prejudice to say that all people have a good aspect or a bad aspect just because they come from a culture. So that's even, some people have actually contended. So this is like the African unity pendulum. But there's actually been discussion about like if that's even a righteous thing to have a concept that all of Africa is on one page, because that's a little bit disrespectful to differences between people and different dealings that people have had, and maybe conflicts that people have had, and mercy and understanding that people have had. Is to say that so you could also say that just because we all come from Africa, that we all have to agree or be the same, or that we're all good or we're all bad. That can be a little bit limiting, because diversity is very is inherent in nature. Within disparate, that means like a little bit different, at least on the surface, but also similar people, is that you always have diversity, good and bad, and actually respecting what's good and bad about people and different about people, people with a similar heritage or different heritage, is that everyone retains the right to be their own person, to make their own choices, and to enjoy their own strengths, and to learn from their own weakness, each person, one by one, all people. So I don't mean to say that it's all good or it's all bad in Africa or America, but I just wanted to say that it might be possible that some of the answers of, so that maybe you could say that America can't fix all of America's problems by itself. Africa may not be able to fix all of Africa's problems by itself, but there would be something interesting when people that are different can find a shared goal and a shared interest, and they might have a part of the answer for each other. And I was thinking today that I think maybe the answer to life is that clearly no one has all the answers, but that doesn't mean that no one has a part of the answer. So I think that a lot of us, we might actually have something of the answer in us. Because that's maybe you can maybe say that's our contribution, and as true as we are to our version of our iteration, our unique piece of what is an answer to overcome our shortcomings, which are maybe our weaknesses and our vanities and our appetites. Um, we do have a piece of that, and the more true we are to our piece, it informs blessings for both ourselves and those we come into contact with directly and indirectly. So like when I'm making this first video about saying that it can be a difficult road to hoe when you're trying to be original, and you're trying to do so from a standpoint of being of having initiative, and whatever deprivation you have to go through in terms of like isolation, or or even maybe coming into groups. You might have to abide within groups to get something done, and that can be as equally challenging as being isolated. But so you have to go through, as it is true to your piece of our answer, the more you do that, the more that we are going to benefit, and then maybe you will taste satisfaction and joy by sharing what you have to offer. So that's actually the task at hand, is to be true to your piece and what that means to you, and what fanfare and attention you do and don't get with that is still a function of your contribution. So it's worth the fight. Is even when I make that video like that to start the series, it's still worth the fight. Every ounce of the fight, every last lick of the fight, every last step of the fight, every last inch of the fight, it is worth it. I say that's my standpoint, and I wouldn't be here to make that comment if I didn't feel like that on a lot of levels. But I still make mistakes too, and I have to apologize and account for that. As the only way to be a man, and I'm not saying man as a male or female, I'm just saying mankind, to do that. But what I meant to say is that that's more so of what I meant to say, is that anything there can be nuance to anything. Even you wear something like this or like this, and there's a lot of nuance to that, and there's a lot of pain behind that, and misunderstanding behind that on both sides of whether you support something or don't. But I just want to say that, just point out that a lot of many of the things that make America awesome are direct contributions and or indirect contributions from Africa herself, in terms of just the people in America, but their heritage and their gifts and blessings. It's not isolated from Africa, but it's also not entirely dependent on Africa, because you have a lot of living and dying and loving and crying and bleeding on American soil, as much for people who have African heritage, have lived and lost and loved as much on American soil as maybe ancestors in Africa. So their contributions aren't necessarily African just because they have African heritage, but they're not also not African. So Africa has blessed America. I would say America has been blessed by Africa, but you could also say that Africa has been blessed by America. And like I'm of African descent, but I've been blessed by America, and that I've had an opportunity to live a somewhat decent and healthy life by who my mother is, and has given herself to others and myself. So I just want to salute all people from all backgrounds and say that we do need to collaborate, and I don't think we're going to have anything worthwhile until we collaborate. But as and while we collaborate, we still need to respect our respective differences and our initiative and prerogative to make our own choices and be our own people in person and people. I think so you have unity, but you also have respect within unity, and you can see that like in a small ant, because a small ant is completely respectful of itself as an individual and how to protect itself, but also how it'll protect its community and contribute to its community and lift up things many tens of times its own size to yet contribute them to it. Ant's not lifting up heavy stuff for itself. It's doing that for its community, for the people that it's a part of. But that doesn't mean that its respective individual labors and efforts and standpoint are not significant as a means of contributing to a greater composite. I don't say that with people, is that we have some strengths, some collective strengths, like I've referenced in this video, like such as a lot of people I've met from Africa that are far away from being xenophobic and appreciate other cultures so much as to travel other places and contribute to the other cultures, or just respect other cultures from the standpoint of being in Africa. But we all have shortcomings, and we have the prerogative to have shortcomings and learn from our shortcomings too, or just not feel the same way about something is completely valid too, and I want to say that. But I was also making that video like where I was singing like with the African, with the Zulu, was saying that's really deep. And sometimes I think like when we do like the shorthand of like doing letters like with like different words, sometimes I think it's a little bit like it's like a little bit like disingenuous to just say like Zulu like it's just a normal word, because that's not actually the way you pronounce it. Because I think I'm not from Africa, but I think my dad would say like Sulu like that. But just to say like Zulu like it's an ordinary thing, like with like letters. I was just thinking about that today, but that's not my particular hill to die on when there's no reason to introduce an argument there. But it was just on my mind a little bit. But I wanted to say but the deeper thing is that I wanted to talk about the birds a little bit, is that like, so you imagine like, so I think birds are very eloquent and they're also intelligent. So how deep would that be? I saw a video about like in the back in the day, like in the back in like the 70s, I think you could have a pet monkey. You could have like pet alligators and crocodiles like in certain places, but you could have a pet monkey back then. But they're having like some very violent attacks from these monkeys. And like some people would say like, oh man, these monkeys are so dangerous. Like, can you believe that people used to keep monkeys after monkeys would flip out like that? But I think that if you actually appreciate the conversation that a lot of people with pets have, like there's a degree of control and enjoyment of control around family members. I think in Western society, like we exert a little undue influence on our family members, and I think we get off on it a little bit, but also similarly on pets. So you imagine the conversations that people have like about dogs, like both in the earshot of dogs and when not in dogs, talking about dogs. Like, yeah, I think we got to do this and that for old Bixby because this and that and this and that. But what if these animals actually understood you as clear as day, but they just had never talked before? So you have a monkey on your hands, and you're talking about some heinous, disrespectful, condescending stuff around this monkey, and it can understand you enough to defend itself and flip out like that. That's just an example of how sometimes I think that animals understand more, or like you hear how eloquent a parrot can be. They can grasp the sound of words.